Kerencaman isu global mendominasi perbincangan pemikir, pemimpin dan pelbagai individu yang kini bermukim di lembah pergunungan Alps Davos bersempena Forum Ekonomi Dunia WEF 2024. Editor Niaga AWANI Najib Aroff mendapatkan pandangan belia berkenaan bagaimana kerencaman isu-isu ini bakal mengubah landskap kehidupan masyarakat dunia.
Baik, terima kasih kepada rakan tugas di studio di World Economic Forum ini. Bukan sahaja tumpuan adalah di ruang konferens utama, topik-topik yang besar dibincangkan, tapi juga dari sudut apa yang dibincangkan oleh YGL ataupun Youth Global Leaders ini, yang mana mereka berbincangkan, mereka di sekolah anak muda membincangkan topik-topik yang cukup pressing dan juga penting kepada dunia dan juga akan dibawa dalam konteks dan juga sudut pandang anak-anak muda, dan sudah pasti ini juga akan diangkat dan juga menjadi cerminan penting untuk kita faham dan gabungkan kedua idea dan juga pandangan ini. Dan saya berpuas hati kerana salah seorang Class of 21 di YGL itu bersama dengan kita pada waktu ini, iaitu Rohan Ramakrishnan, pengasas Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Digital Media Nusantara. Rohan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Najib.
I want to start off with the current global risk report by WEF. Right? One of the things that they listed are the misinformation and disinformation on the top list. How do you see the misinformation list? How acute is the whole situation and problem right now? Misinformation, disinformation.
Right. So I think it's a very alarming thing. This year is actually the 20th year of the Young Global Leader Foundation. There were 200 of us here from around the globe. And one of the key talking points is actually misinformation and how it's further fueled and proliferated by artificial intelligence. And if you see in the next year or in the coming year, about 3 to 5 billion people are going to be voting across nearly 10 to 15 countries. And because of that, there's a lot of concern, right? Misinformation can create conflict or is creating conflict. Misinformation brings to question democratically elected governments. So how do we solve the situation? And I think everyone around the world is here to figure out how we're going to act on this and resolve it, including the climate crisis, the disruption to global supply chains, and of course, among other things, how do we make the world much more stable and the world economy resilient?
But how do you see, because I talked to some of the experts just now about the ungoverned AI. This is one of the key challenge in terms of misinformation and disinformation right now. Given that with the backdrop of the geopolitical risk and also tensions that's happening currently, how do you see that the ungoverned AI is happening right now, and what are some of the risks, especially from the point of view of youngsters?
Right. So the thing is that today, take for example deep fakes, right, and then also the manipulation of voice, right. So I think we've seen something like this happening close to home recently. The government also is making a law initiative to digitalize certain aspects of the government information systems to combat these issues with AI working in wildfire. So I think one way to combat it is actually to get involved in it and build systems that govern it. Trying to regulate it has proven, it's not proven to work over the last 5 years, 10 years, even with the big social media firms. So I think the solution is going head on, developing our own solution, our own frameworks, creating our own environment and self-regulating that environment by getting everyone to come in and adopt it, as opposed to allowing people to operate, in free will and in wildfire.
I want to ask about the regulating and also the governance side, because we've seen a lot of countries, especially to our surprise, the advanced countries, for instance, they're still facing a lot of difficulties in terms of governing this AI, in terms of policy makers understanding AI before they can make any decision, right?
Correct.
So most of the understanding is actually on the private sectors and youngsters as well. But how do you see the governing and also the policy makers around the globe, especially and understanding AI, and how do they on the right idea and on the right track on understanding AI?
So that's a very difficult question. I had a conversation where we actually had a breakout session earlier during the YGL orientation, and it involved a couple of breakouts across a couple of topics, and one of them was actually the proliferation of misinformation through the use of AI and how governments are trying to address it. And I think the most important thing here we need to understand is that we need to strike a balance between entrepreneurship and innovation, and if you prevent entrepreneurship and innovation, then you're not going to solve other problems which require digitalization. But at the same time, again, I use this word wildfire. If you allow people to innovate and do whatever they want to do, especially nowadays when there's so many different kinds of softwares that are available online that enable you to just go and quickly build all sorts of AI tools or big data tools, and the average person is able to use these tools and proliferate all sorts of misinformation. It's very hard to regulate, actually. So it comes back to what everyone was discussing earlier. Do we build tools and then get people to use those tools? So you're in control of the tool, as opposed to somebody else having a couple of random tools out there and then using those tools to drive whatever kind of messaging or whatever kind of misinformation campaign that they want to do to serve the agenda of the powers that be or the individuals involved in whatever processes, whether it's an election of a government, whether it's a political party's campaign.
That is interesting part, because in the US we've seen all the industry players are coming together. This is non-binding rules, right? For them to agree that we have to govern.
That's right.
To govern AI and to use it to the good use, right? But how do you see in terms of collaboration, the public-private partnership in terms of governing AI and understanding AI better, PPP, and what some of the best examples from other countries that we can learn, not just Malaysia, but the Southeast Asia region or Asia region as well?
Actually, I think a good example, just to sidetrack, is actually the GDPR, right? Which the Europeans have come up with, and they've used it actually to clamp down on the big tech firms, right?
Yes.
Alphabet, Meta, and all these guys. And in Malaysia as well, we have our PDPA. So actually, it comes back to how you want to protect your personal data, because if that personal data is out there and it's available to be aggregated and crawled and then used for all the wrong intentions to target the kind of people that can be easily manipulated, which then feeds people with the wrong information, which then takes them to the polling station and making the wrong decision. So if you go all the way back, I think yes, there are right frameworks and there are right policy measures in place. Governments are trying, but I think it's an oligopoly, right? There's just three of them, or it's a monopoly, right? So you need to break these guys up. It goes back to what happened during the oil era, right? They broke up all the big oil companies, Rockefeller, and Standard Oil and all these companies. So you got to break them up, downsize them, and then probably they're not as lethal and dangerous as they are. So decoupling and creating some kind of more stricter competition laws may be a solution.
I want to talk about digitalization and also data collection and analytics. This is very important to a lot of sectors, especially in Malaysia. We are doing it right now, and we have been doing it for the past, I think, starting 2015 with Digital Malaysia and all that. But how do you see in terms of the trust? Because that's that is the theme here. We're rebuilding trust. Trust is something that is very scarce right now in terms of getting it, and data collection.
Yes,
because people. This is one of the risks as well, listed on the Global Risk Report. In terms of trusting data collection, analytics, and all that, how do we manage this? Strike a balance between the privacy of the data and also at the same time use it to the good use.
So a large part of it is actually perception. Now you see, if you look at My Sejahtera, for example, again closer back to home, I think it worked very, very well.
Indeed.
But then towards the end, when they were trying to decommission it, there was a big question around what happened to all the data and who owns that data, and then they tried to profiteer from it or monetize it. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's my understanding of it. So how do you build confidence, right? And it goes back to, again, being very transparent and having people accountable when they take your data, collect your data, and use your data for whatever kind of government information system. Also, having said that, Singapore, which is a very advanced economy, highly regulated, stringent laws, also had their Prime Minister's data hacked, right? His health records were hacked, and that created more distrust. So how do we strike the right balance? I told someone earlier in one of the breakout sections, I said, they kept asking, how do you solve this AI-driven misinformation campaign? And I said, go back to print news, print newspaper, stop going on digital site lights.
How do they
and,
react to
yeah.
your suggestion?
Some people were taken aback, but I think some of them got the idea, like, oh yeah, you know, we need to go back in time and print, you know, it's truthful, it's licensed, it's controlled. If you act funny, you get compounded, you get fined. Where else in the digital landscape, it's like no man's land, you know, it's like Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto. You do whatever you want to do out there. It's a lawless place.
Yeah. So in a way, it's a long way to go for this.
It's a really, really, really long way to go. You know, you got to look at it from short-term, medium-term, long risk.
yes.
That's how the report by WEF is built. I think short-term is building resilience in the economy and solving the problems in the supply chain, right? The Panama Canal is having a drought.
Yeah.
The Suez Canal, the Houthis have causing some ruckus down there. And the world hasn't really recovered from the post-COVID era. But still, it's resilient. We avoided a recession last year. And I think the next most important thing is that how do you prevent all these micro conflicts and civil unrest that can happen in the next 2 years, which is very critical because of all these elections and 3 to 4 billion people, 5 billion people around the world going to the polls.
Yeah. Last but not least, Rohan, to the youngsters out there, especially when they see what YGL has done, right, and discuss as well. How I know this is quite cliche, but how important it is for youngsters, especially out there, to understand that this kind of conversation has to happen between them. Because if you look at the global risk report for the 10 years, these are our generation. It's going to face all this
We
risk,
are the
right?
ones who are going to be dealing with this problem. I mean, look at the weather out here. Look how cold it is, right?
Super cold.
It's either -2 or -5. Now I don't even bother checking. So, you know, if you want to live, I mean, look back home. It rains every day in KL and it's unpredictable.
Floods,
so I think the youth are doing the right thing. Malaysian youth are very proactive compared to a lot of youth across the region. I think there was a report on this a few years ago about youth involvement in Southeast Asia. So my encouragement is that, you know, go out there. If you believe in something, pursue it. Be passionate about it. A lot of people will tell you that you're filled with idealism, but I think idealism is very important to do what you want to do in that journey of yours. If you take that idealism away, you try to be too pragmatic, you're not going to innovate, you're not going to get that stroke of luck, you know, or serendipity, whatever that word is. Someone used it.
Right, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you so
us
much.
this time.
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone who's watched this. I'd like to thank Astro as always.
You're
I'm
welcome.
glad there's a Malaysian contingent here and everyone is proactive and getting the Malaysian message out there. So thank you again and have a lovely time here in Davos.
And you too. Thank you so much, Rohan. Okay, semua ni kita akan rangkumkan dalam website kami astro.com. Sudah pasti ini adalah pandangan anak muda. Ini penting sekali. Kita akan cantumkan dengan pandangan-pandangan golongan-golongan yang lain juga di sini, dan juga bagaimana ini penting untuk kita faham penyelesaian itu bukan hanya tertakluk kepada siapa memegang jawatan tersebut ataupun kuasa tersebut. Anak muda ada penyelesaian dia, bagaimana kita cantumkan semua ini. Okey, sekian sahaja laporan saya untuk Niaga AWANI dari World Economic Forum di Davos, Switzerland.